Between 1993 and 2009, German police were hunting one of the most elusive serial killers in European history. Her DNA had been found at 40 crime scenes across Germany, Austria, and France. Murders, burglaries, a heroin needle found at a school, the shooting of a police officer. They called her the Phantom of Heilbronn, the woman without a face. European police forces spent millions investigating her. They offered a €300,000 reward for information. Forensic profiles described her as an Eastern European woman, possibly connected to organized crime. Then a crime scene technician in Bavaria tested a cotton swab from a new case, and something was wrong with the result. The cotton swab, the tool used to collect DNA evidence at crime scenes, was already contaminated. The Phantom of Heilbronn had never existed. The DNA belonged to a woman who worked at the factory that manufactured the swabs. Every cotton swab from that factory had her cells on it before it ever touched a crime scene. 15 years of investigation, 40 crime scenes, one factory worker. The Phantom of Heilbronn investigation began in 1993 when investigators examining the crime scene of a murder in Idar-Oberstein, Germany, recovered DNA from a cup. The DNA profile was entered into the German forensic database. Over the following years, the same DNA profile appeared again and again at murder scenes, burglaries, drug paraphernalia. The crimes ranged from violent to petty, committed in multiple countries. No suspect matched any known profile. The most alarming connection. In April 2007, a police officer named Michelle Kieswetter was shot and killed in Heilbronn while sitting in a patrol car with her partner. DNA from the Phantom was found at the scene. German authorities believed they were now looking for someone who had murdered a police officer. The reward was raised to €300,000. The investigation intensifies. Hundreds of investigators were assigned to the case. They interviewed thousands of people across 3 countries. They tracked down leads suggesting the Phantom might be from Romania, from Eastern Europe, from German criminal networks. Genetic analysis of the mitochondrial DNA suggested the subject had Eastern European ancestry. Investigators focused on Romanian communities across Germany. Nothing matched. The discovery. In March 2009, investigators in Bavaria were processing a crime scene. The cotton swab used to collect the evidence produced a DNA result, including the Phantom's profile, on a case that had no logical connection to any of the Phantom's other crimes. A forensic investigator took a second swab from the same location. Different DNA result, no Phantom. The discrepancy triggered a review. Investigators asked a simple question: where did these swabs come from? The cotton swabs used by most German state police departments for forensic evidence collection came from a single factory in Bavaria. The swabs were mass-produced, sterile sealed, but sterile only in the medical sense, meaning free from bacteria. They had never been tested for human DNA contamination. The factory employed several Eastern European women. One of them, an elderly woman who had worked at the factory for years, was found to be shedding skin cells onto the cotton swabs during the manufacturing process. Every swab from that batch had her DNA on it before it was shipped to police departments across Germany, Austria, and France. When crime scene technicians opened those swabs and used them to collect evidence, they contaminated the sample with her cells before the swab even touched the crime scene. The Phantom of Heilbronn had never committed a single crime. She had never been at any of the 40 crime scenes. She was an elderly factory worker who had been making sterile cotton swabs for years. The murders that remained unsolved. The revelation was not, of course, good news. It meant that the actual DNA from 40 crime scenes had been contaminated before it could be properly analyzed. The real perpetrators of those 40 crimes, including the murder of Officer Michelle Kieswetter, now had a more difficult evidentiary trail. In the case of Michelle Kieswetter's murder, further investigation eventually identified members of a far-right terrorist group called the NSU, the National Socialist Underground. Two of the group's members had killed Kieswetter. They killed themselves in 2011 when police closed in on them during an unrelated bank robbery. It is believed that the NSU's crimes were partially hidden by the contaminated swab investigation. Police were chasing a phantom, while the actual killers operated freely. The International Organization for Standardization published new standards for forensic DNA collection equipment in 2016, specifically as a result of the Phantom of Heilbronn case. 15 years, 40 crime scenes, a €300,000 reward, and the woman they were hunting had never left her factory. The actual killers of a police officer walked free for years, partly because investigators were chasing DNA that was contaminated before it ever touched a crime scene. This is the case that changed how every country in the world tests forensic cotton swabs. Subscribe to WhisprFrame. The Phantom of Heilbronn is one of the most important forensic failures in history, and most people have never heard of it.